There are way too many rage-worthy LEGO instruction steps. We've had to go through some terrible things just to build certain sets. So in this video, you're gonna see instruction steps that were literally designed to make you rage. For the first one, imagine it's 2007 and you're building the Imperial landing craft set from LEGO Star Wars. You're just following along with the instructions, then you get to step 27 on page 20, and there's just nothing. Like, the step number is there, the parts box is there, but it's completely empty. It's like LEGO just forgot to finish designing the page. And the weirdest part is that this made it all the way to the final printed manual, and it never got revised online. Usually when LEGO messes up, they'll fix the mistake in the online version, but this one is still there. But at least that empty step doesn't completely mess up your build, because the mistake in the Willy Wonka's set instructions is 10 times worse. You're building the chocolate riverboat, and in step 394, the white stern of the boat is clearly visible on the back. But then you look at step 395 and it's just gone. It literally vanishes into thin air. Then in step 396, it magically reappears like nothing ever happened. The design team acknowledged this was an error after people started freaking out online. But imagine building this set without knowing about it. Something just like this happened to me when I was building the Windmill Village Hut set from One Piece. And I flipped the pages back and forth like 5 times before I realized that LEGO messed up. Not me. But even if the instructions are 100% right, you can still get rage baited, especially if you build the Colosseum set. The entire set is basically one section that you build 40 times. You make one arch with all of the columns and details, and then you do it again and again and again and again until you've gone completely insane and made an entire circle. But here's the best part. The last instruction booklet opens with, "Congratulations, you're nearly there." They know this set is mind-numbing and repetitive, and they're congratulating you for not giving up, even though you probably did. The worst part, though, is that this happens with a lot more sets than just the Colosseum, because it happened with Captain America's shield, too. Obviously, after the Colosseum, LEGO learned that people will deal with repetitive builds if the final result looks cool. So they made the Captain America shield set, and this one has you repeating sections either 36 or 18 times, depending on which part you're building. But pretty much everything in the beginning is 36. It's on page 17, page 18, page 20, page 22. I mean, I could go on. Obviously, the end result is pretty cool, but I think if the 16th page of a set I'm building looked like this, I'd want to give up immediately. Like, this is genuinely insane. But if you think 36 repeated sections sounds bad, let me tell you about the World Map set. This set has over 11,695 pieces, and besides 4,292 of them, literally every single one is a 1x1 stud or tile. And the entire time you're building, all you're doing is putting these studs and tiles down, one at a time. The worst part, though, has to be the color code you're expected to use. Every stud or tile is numbered, and I know this square may seem like a lot, but it's only 16 by 16 studs. So you're only putting down 256 pieces here, which is a literal drop in the bucket for this set. If you notice, though, the background for the instructions is black, which isn't a problem for this set, but for other ones, it was one of the most annoying things ever. LEGO stopped doing this after 2021, so the world map was one of the last sets to have this black background. But when I was looking for stuff for this video, I found out that the instructions for the UCS Batmobile from 2006 had a black background. I don't think I need to explain why this is a problem, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any pictures online of what the original booklet actually looked like. The one LEGO has online now has a blue background, but to me, it's pretty obvious that it wasn't always like this. For one, there are really faded bat signals on some of the pages, which would show up a lot better on a black background. But then the steps themselves just look weird. Instructions this old are always going to be low quality, but this almost looks like a bad Photoshop job if you ask me. But now let's get into the stuff that takes forever to build, but in a different way than the Colosseum and Cap's shield. The roller coaster set from 2018 has one step where you connect 203 chain links together to make one gigantic chain. Again, it's not spread across multiple steps where you build sections and connect them later. It's just one step that says make a chain out of 203 pieces. These pieces are tiny and difficult to connect, and the worst part is that this chain is literally essential to the set. It's the track the roller coaster sits on, so without it, the set is basically pointless. Whenever you have to make a chain like this in any LEGO set, it's always annoying, but the sand crawler from LEGO Star Wars takes it to another level. Instead of being one long line, these pieces have to be fitted to the feet of the vehicle. At first, it doesn't seem that bad, since it's nowhere near as many pieces as the roller coaster, but you just haven't figured it out yet. You need to build 4 of these feet, which means you have to do the same thing 4 times over, and the instructions makes it feel even longer. They have you make these treads 38 pieces at a time, and you have to do it 8 times, which is a total of 304 chain pieces. It may not be all in one go, but it's more than the roller coaster by a lot. But then there's the ship in a bottle set, which has the most insane instruction step I've ever seen. Obviously, this set is based on a real ship in a bottle, but what the LEGO version has that the real thing usually doesn't is water inside the bottle. They used a bunch of trans-clear blue studs to represent the water, and so far, nothing about this is rage bait at all, but you just haven't seen the instructions yet. Once you build the bottle the ship sits in, LEGO tells you to just dump all 284 studs into the bottle. It's by far the easiest instruction in any LEGO set ever made, but I just can't get over how ridiculous it is. But unfortunately, this is where things get genuinely bad. The Technic Ferrari Daytona SP3 is a $400 set, so you'd expect the instructions to be perfect, right? Well, they weren't, and it wasn't just one little mistake like the one in the Willy Wonka set. The paper manual had multiple critical errors, including reversed wave selectors, swapped check marks and X marks, gear positions that were physically impossible, and leftover pieces that were supposed to be on the set but weren't. LEGO even sent the set out early to some people, and they were able to catch the mistakes, but this was the finished product, so everyone who bought the set got instructions that made it impossible to build. LEGO updated the digital instructions with all the fixes, but if you bought the set at launch and only had the paper manual, you were screwed on a $400 purchase. And Technic sets are already complicated, so imagine getting instructions that are just straight up wrong. Something similar happened with the Jazz Club set, but it was such an easy thing to miss that LEGO didn't catch it in time. As you follow the instructions, it tells you to keep using pieces from bag 12, but the thing is, bag 12 was completely empty. You check the bag, shake it out, look everywhere, and there's nothing left. So you're sitting there thinking LEGO forgot to pack pieces into your set. People were contacting support, posting on forums, and trying anything to get replacement pieces. But it turns out that the instructions just left out the part where you're supposed to open bag 13. It's such a simple mistake, but it caused so much confusion. Because I don't know about you, but I've never even heard of this problem in another set. I can only imagine how confused I'd be if this happened to me. But here's one that genuinely makes no sense, and it's basically the origin story of this entire topic. A certain instruction manual showed a 3-stud long plate stretching across 4 studs, which is obviously physically impossible. This one has been viral for years and is the main one people use when they talk about mistakes in instructions, so there's no way I could have left it out. I mean, this step is the original rage bait. One thing I haven't covered yet though is when LEGO tells you to use less pieces than you're supposed to. The Emperor Palpatine's shuttle set has a step where the parts box shows 1 red lightsaber blade and 1 hilt, but the image shows 2 blades and 2 hilts being used. So which is it? Do you need 1 or 2? There's literally no way to figure it out besides building the rest of the set and hoping you were right, because LEGO didn't even fix the typo in the online version like they usually do. And the same thing happened with the Cozy House set from 2023. On page 89, the instructions show pieces being removed between steps 2 and 3, and then those same pieces being back on in step 4. The steps were clearly printed in the wrong order, so if you follow the instructions exactly like you're supposed to, you'll take pieces off just to put them right back on. But this next one isn't a mistake like everything else in this video. It's grade A rage bait because it actually works. The UCS AT-AT set has Technic axles positioned so they physically can't be removed unless you use tools or destroy the entire build, and it's 100% intentional. Once you build this AT-AT, it's permanent. You can't take it apart to store it, you can't rebuild it into something else, you can't disassemble it at all. The AT-AT is one of many non-Technic sets that use Technic pieces, but designers know when certain things can't be done, so the fact that this happened anyway is genuinely upsetting. Shame on you, LEGO. If I had tomatoes on me right now, I'd be throwing them. Moving on to something more funny, let's talk about all of our arch enemies, stickers. They're the bane of our existence as Lego builders, and some sets have a million of them. But the sticker situation in the NASA Space Shuttle Discovery set in particular is unbelievable. The set has 24 stickers that go on the inside of the ship. Now, that already sounds terrible, but it gets worse, because you have to put these things on the inside of curved pieces, which if you've never had to do, by the way, thank the Lego gods, because it's rough. Don't worry though, it keeps getting worse, because 24 stickers on the inside of curved pieces wasn't enough. These stickers make up the entire interior of the shuttle. Every single one is this shiny silver color, so if you mess up even one of them just a little bit, the aesthetics of the inside of the ship will be completely thrown off. But I can't talk about stickers without talking about the Speed Champions theme. I just recently bought the set of Suki's S2K from Too Fast, Too Furious, because let's be honest, her car is sick. But this was my first time building a set from Speed Champions, and nothing could have prepared me for how many stickers I had to put on this car. The paint job is what makes this car so sick, but Lego only made 2 printed pieces for it. The rest of them are all stickers, and just to prove it to you, I'm gonna count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. There are 24 stickers on this set. But anyways, this next piece of rage bait is so insane that it's almost hard to believe. Lego said a while ago that they slowly but surely wanted to phase out paper instructions and only have them available online. I think I can speak for all of us when I say this would suck. But Lego said they're worried about how much paper they're using for all these booklets. And I was on their side until I found out what they do for sets made for 4-year-olds. The instruction booklets for these sets have 1 step per page. That's right, just 1 step. If this isn't wasting paper, then I don't know what is. Come on, Lego, you can at least do 2 steps. But apparently, Lego thinks we're dumber than we are, because they tell us something extremely obvious in that Palpatine's shuttle set from before. This set was made for kids ages 8 to 12, and maybe I'm crazy here, but I don't think kids this old need Lego telling them to put their bricks on a table instead of, what is that, grass? A carpet? Whatever it is, a 12-year-old doesn't need Lego to tell them to put their bricks on a table. Like, let's be for real. Anyways, let's move on from that so I can show you a time when Lego was literally trolling in the typewriter instructions. According to people online who've built it, this set is by far one of the most difficult non-Technic sets to build. But the reason is because the functional parts of this set use Technic pieces to make it happen. So yeah, that's a thing. Obviously, this set is known for how functional it is, which means you have to build a lot of it using Technic pieces. So a lot of the steps in the instructions are sub-builds that make the set operate. When you build just one of these sub-builds, you end up with 9 of these things, which is annoying on its own. But just to rub it in, Lego shows them jumbled up in a pile instead of laid out next to each other. But remember, I said this happens when you build just one of these sub-builds, and there are 3 in total. So Lego shows you 9 Technic builds piled up 3 separate times. Maybe I'm going crazy for this one, but this just feels like rage bait at its finest. But if it didn't get you, this next one definitely will. The Minecraft Micro World Forest set has Herobrine lurking in the background of the first page in the instructions. If you don't know, Herobrine is a mythical Minecraft character that became a huge meme because he doesn't actually exist in the game. Mojang would even put removed Herobrine in patch notes as a joke, even though he was never real to begin with. So Lego put him in the official instructions just to troll everyone. But this next thing was a mistake and a letdown at the same time. The Creel House in the Stranger Things theme just came out this year, and it came with minifigures of the entire main cast of season 5. Some of these minifigures look super sick, but others ended up like Jonathan. Now, I'm not hating on his design. Making that guy into a minifigure would be pretty difficult. What I'm hating on here is the fact that his arms have no printing on them. Oh, and the reason I'm mad about this, by the way, is because he has prints on his arms in the instructions. So there's a version of him out there with this cool arm printing to make his jacket look normal. But instead, Lego just used blank arms and didn't even fix the one in the instructions. But now, let's look at the Rivendell set from Lord of the Rings. The Rivendell set from Lego Lord of the Rings. This set just dropped a few years back, and even though Lego should be able to make a set without pissing anyone off, they unfortunately cannot. The most annoying part about it is right there, front and center, the roof. Those diamond-shaped pieces aren't part of some special roof piece made for this set. They're 1x1 tiles, which means you have to place every single one yourself. This is nothing new though. There are loads of sets where LEGO tells us to place a ton of pieces, including some you probably haven't heard of, which I'll get to later. But these tiles have their own special problem. As we can see, not only are these pieces turned to the side, but they're also spaced out, so lining them up would genuinely take forever. But don't worry, LEGO knew we would mess this up and showed the tiles turned in all sorts of directions in the instructions. And to fix it, they told us to shove a 2x14 plate in between the pieces to line them up easier. Not gonna lie, this is actually a pretty good method. It's just crazy that LEGO put it in the instructions. But something they've done that's way crazier is making sets with illegal building techniques in them. I'm not talking about the vintage ones from before these techniques were illegal. I mean real, modern-day sets that completely break the rules. And what's even worse is that there are enough of them that Brickset made an entire web page about it. The page has 5 sets listed, 2 of which are the Saturn V, which got re-released with the same illegal technique. But they all use the method of wedging plates or tiles between studs on another brick or plate. The most recent set that broke the rules was the Justifier from LEGO Star Wars. But what if I told you this webpage isn't up to date, and that there's a new set that broke the rules again with a different technique? You might think I'm lying, but the Ford Model T does just that. The technique it used involved headlight bricks, which are notorious for being used in illegal building techniques. The person who found it was none other than the GOAT Tiago. He broke down the problem very well and showed us just how bad this technique really is for your bricks. He even got the set early and did his review before it came out, but from what I can tell, LEGO didn't change anything. The technique is used on step 167. I know guys, stay with me, lock in here. Tiago showed it in his video, and when you compare it to the online version, the steps look identical. LEGO changes online instructions whenever they get an update, so clearly the problem is still here. But this topic is a little heavy, so let's get back to the weird stuff. In my video about rage bait instructions, I talked about how LEGO told us to straight up pour studs into the top of the ship in a bottle set. But what I didn't know was that this wasn't the only time they've done this. It's also in the bonsai tree set, but it's a little different. In this one, every piece you're supposed to pour is in bag 3, but for some reason, they're all in 4 little bags inside the big bag. So LEGO tells us to take these 4 bags out, open them, pour them back into bag 3, then pour them into the base of the set. Voila, you now have 200 loose 1x1 tiles in your bonsai tree, and all you had to do was open 5 bags. This is obviously very annoying, but it's nowhere near as annoying as something you do in the Endurance set. This set is based on a real ship that sailed the seas of Antarctica from 1914 to 1917. LEGO did a phenomenal job recreating it, but to make the accuracy this good, they had to use real cloth for the sails, which meant the builder had to do one of the most frustrating things ever. You start building the nose of the ship on page 390, and if you hadn't noticed yet, LEGO is telling you to thread a string in between a piece and lock it in place. It gets worse though, because 3 pages later, a sail is attached to the string and magically floating in mid-air. The string isn't attached anywhere on the other side yet, because that comes on the next page, where you have to route it through 5 different points on the masts. You even have to do this again with another string a few pages later, but luckily the rest of the sails get mounted with connection points, so you don't have to route all 10 through string. However, according to New Elementary, these strings actually put a lot of pressure on the build and pull the masts forward, which is definitely not good. But even worse is that this isn't the only time LEGO's messed up sails. They dropped the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set in 2020, which has cloth sails just like the Endurance, but they have a completely different problem. In a review from Bricks for Bricks, the builder says they saw someone say that you can use an iron to flatten out the sails when you want to attach them to the ship, which really made me scratch my head. But then I thought about it. This set can be built in 2 different ways, and the first way it's built in the instructions is with the sails furled. LEGO literally tells you to roll them up on page 160, but when you build the second version, the sails are extended, and after reading that review, I realized they aren't as flat as they look in the instructions, and there are actually 2 main reasons for this. The first one is because the sails aren't packaged flat in their bags, so there was never any hope of them being flat to begin with. But the second reason is what Brothers Brick said in their review. After being rolled for only a day or 2, the sails were pretty wrinkled. This seems like something LEGO would address in the instructions, but they didn't. So the weird instruction step here is that there wasn't one. You were just supposed to fix this sail problem on your own. But instructions get even weirder with the addition of modern day technology. LEGO made a system called Control Plus in 2019 as a replacement for the beloved power function system, and people were really not happy about it. The biggest reason was because instead of remote controls, Control Plus uses an app and Bluetooth, which is way less fun than an analog remote control. Regardless, LEGO released it anyway, and when the Liber Excavator, the first set to use Control Plus, came out, the instructions were literally telling people to stop and whip out their phones mid-build. I scrolled through all 740 pages of the instructions online and found 4 separate times where LEGO did this. You can find them at steps 234, 485, 692, and right after step 1000. But if you notice, they're not completely identical. They're all here to show you which part of the set is being connected to the app. I honestly don't even understand why LEGO was showing this, especially since you don't actually connect anything to the app until you're done building. But as weird and irritating as it is to see a phone in LEGO instructions, it's even worse to see the same steps over and over and over. In the Rage Bait video, I mentioned a few sets with this problem, but one that I absolutely have to talk about is the Taj Mahal. From the outside, it doesn't even look like it'd be that bad until you look at the base. It's pretty much identical all the way around, and considering this set has almost 6,000 pieces, it means you're in for a pretty rough build. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw in a review from Bricks for Bricks. They said that bags 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all the same, and when I checked the instructions, they definitely weren't lying. This is when I realized that it's not just the base that's brutal, it's the entire set. I mean, just look at this picture. But if you thought the Taj Mahal, Captain America's shield, or any other set was repetitive, it's because you haven't met the LEGO Eiffel Tower, which not only has one of the highest piece counts of any LEGO set ever, but is also the second most repetitive set ever, behind the world map, of course. Just by looking at it, you can tell this thing is gonna be an absolute nightmare, but it's the reviews for it that made me realize just how bad it really is. Not only is most of the set the same pieces, but according to Adam White from Brick Fans, there was a step that was required to be done 140 times, which made his heart sink. Unfortunately, Adam didn't show this step in his review, and not gonna lie, there's no way I'm scrolling through all this, so y'all are just gonna have to believe Adam. But of course, he wasn't the only reviewer with a problem like this. At the end of Rob Payton's review on Brick Fanatics, he said that all the repeated steps makes you wonder if it'll take 2 years to complete the build, and even gave us numbers so we knew what he was talking about. Add that to this post on Reddit with 3.4k upvotes, and I think it's pretty obvious that this set is unbelievably infamous. But repetitive LEGO isn't always bad. Sometimes it's weird in the funniest way possible. Ever since LEGO made the round 1x1 with horizontal swirl piece, which is obviously what everyone calls it, they've had a weird obsession with poop, and sometimes they don't even use this piece to represent it. The best example of this is obviously the flushing toilet in the City Garden set from Ninjago, but I actually want to show you a more underrated one in the Paranormal Intercept bus set from the Hidden Side theme. When you see how LEGO advertised the set, it looks like this porta potty isn't anything special. real, but this is the hidden side theme. And this porta potty can transform into a haunted porta potty and shoot poop discs out of the door. The instruction step that shows this is possible is absolutely hilarious, but it almost makes too much sense for it to be the weirdest one. An even weirder poop moment is in the vintage taxi set, which was actually a gift with purchase set. This is the only picture of it on LEGO's website besides the pictures of the box. And if you had to guess where the poop would be, where would you say it is? Hold on to that guess and take a look at page 8 of the instructions. For some reason, the designer decided the trash can needed a random piece of poop inside of it. It adds absolutely nothing to the set besides comedy, but there's still one more poop moment I want to point out. It's one we all know, the piece of poop under Dwight's desk in the Office set. This is a really famous Easter egg, but have any of you seen what it looks like before the desk is actually there? You put it down in step 22, and it's literally just sitting there in the middle of the floor. And LEGO even pointed an arrow at it with another picture of the poop so you don't miss your mark. As funny as this is, I want to tell you about those times where LEGO made us place way too many pieces that I mentioned earlier in the video. And the best place to start is the Dagobah Jedi training diorama from LEGO Star Wars. When you see this set from above, it's pretty obvious what part of the set has too many of the same piece. But the whole thing only has 1,000 pieces, so it can't be that bad, right? Well, unfortunately, over 20% of those pieces are for the swamp, and the worst of it are on steps 42 and 43. Step 42 has you place 39 plates, which isn't too bad, but then you get to step 43 and you wonder why you even bought the set. 177 tiles is way too many to place all at once, but the thing about LEGO is that it could always be worse. You see, even though there are a lot of them, these 216 pieces are pretty easy to place, but some LEGO sets make you build a chain. And when that happens, you realize just how bad it can really be. A perfect example is in the Haunted House set from the Icons theme. The house has an elevator, so of course you have to build the chain that moves it up and down. This happens at step 440, where you have to use 149 chain pieces. Clearly, this is less than the tiles and plates in the Dagobah set, but putting these chain links together is a lot more difficult than you might realize. They connect with two really small notches, and since the chain needs to be sturdy, the links aren't very flexible, which is what makes them so difficult to put together. But there's something even worse than this in the Loop Coaster set, because the chain for this one is made with two different types of links, and step 452 is the worst of it. The main part of the chain uses 222 regular links, but to connect it to the set, you have to build another one with 33 different chain links. The wider links are what actually holds the coaster in place, and that's the worst part about LEGO chains. They're always 100% needed. But the worst part about LEGO instructions in general is that some sets don't even come with paper copies. The first set that did this was the Creative Toolbox set from 2017, but according to reviews online, most of, if not every set in LEGO Mario doesn't come with paper instructions either. Instead, LEGO pushes people to use the PDFs online. They probably did this to see how the public would react, but it didn't end up getting that much attention. The topic as a whole wasn't really talked about until 2024, when LEGO made a survey for insiders asking them how they felt about paper instructions. After it was done, it was obvious that people wanted them to stay. So even though there are some sets out there without them, paper instructions aren't going anywhere. But what's the weirdest or most rage-inducing instruction step you've ever done? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.